was speaking at Soul Center. I know you were expecting a guy a little different than me. He's my dear friend, he's my brother, he's my teacher, and so I do just want to take a moment and just acknowledge Akili Beckwith. That entire family has done so much for me, for communities, for our world. We just continue to anchor an awareness around them. Reverend Michael sends his love. He sends his appreciation for all that you are doing here to continue the work that he began, where he is continuing the work that others began before him, and that you should have an awareness that you are an extension of something that didn't just begin when Agape started. It didn't just begin when the United States started. It didn't just begin when ships came across oceans and seas, but there's always been this thing that's been happening in eternity. And so we're going to spend some time talking about the eternal. We're going to spend some time talking about the light. I'm just so grateful today. So grateful for the opportunity to be here with you, because I'm aware more than ever that it's real. Like, there's just so many situations and occurrences, and I know you've already heard a couple of talks today. I mean, what our brother told us earlier about Vipassana meditation, I was sitting next to Beth, and when Beth heard 10 days in silence, she was like, oh my gosh. Gas, clutch the pearls. 10 days. It's a beautiful 10 days, isn't it? I haven't gone up to Norfolk. I want to go up to Norfolk, but I've done Vipassana, and it truly is life-altering. And really, it's life-altering without having to worry about the after effects. Because you already know what the after effects are going to be. The after effects of meditation, just like the after effects of coming into Soul Center, is that you're more awake, you're more alive, you're more aware, you're more awakened to reality. And really, as I begin this topic that I'm going to talk about today, it's going to really call on you to stop pretending. Sorry. I'm not really sure what you were expecting, but I'm really going to, it's really going to cause you to stop, focusing on the illusion. Because for the month of, we're in April still, right? Yeah, I'm sort of in an end-game haze, for those of you that know what that is, and I'm halfway into the Battle of Winterfell, like the people who are in there, so somewhere between pop culture, right? And pop culture is one of these things that we often we don't recognize how it saturates itself in our lives. And one of the things that we don't realize is the last time I was here, we talked about the 3 Ds. We were talking about seeing life in 3D. We talked about the idea of death. We talked about the idea of discipline. And we talked about the idea of discernment. And so when I left you last time, we were really rooting in this idea of how you see the world. And today what I really want to talk about is how you, as an individualized expression of the Most High, how you as a mother, how you as a father, how you as a sister, how you as a brother, as you as a gay man or woman, as you as a lesbian woman or man, however you identify yourself, how do you light up the world? What are you bringing light to? There is so much going on in our world, and a lot of it is not real. Surely most of the things that we're worrying about, we have at least calibrated ourselves to an awareness that most of the things we worry about actually never happen. An overwhelming majority of the things that are concerns of ours, whether rightly or wrongly, whether it's important for us to tighten up the screws on the wall to make sure things don't fall, whether it's important that we put a couple of extra buffers between us and something else, those things are important, but the worry that comes along with it is completely and wholly unnecessary. Because if we're actually doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about being mindful of the water in Flint, Michigan. If we care about the water in Flint, let's just care about it. Let's just think about it. Like those of us that make trips to Mexico, we care about all of the stories that we hear about what happens for those of us who are not natives to that region when we drink the water. It's not Mexicans that have trouble drinking the water in Mexico because their biology is aligned to the water there. They've got stuff going on there. But when we attention on it. We're acutely aware, for those of you that travel, that we should put attention here, so we should take care of ourselves in a particular way. But how are we doing that when it comes to our very own lives on an everyday basis? So at Agape, in the classes, they talk about the life structures. And the life structures are these 8 things. Ready? So the first one is your mind. And we're going to run through them really quickly. That's why they record this, so you don't have to write anything down. You can be fully present with me. First thing we talk about is the mind. Just the mind itself. We know that we all have a mind, right? Yes. Sometimes our mind feels like it's over here. Sometimes we feel like our mind is lasered. And sometimes we feel like it's a shotgun splatter across a wall. We don't know exactly what we're focusing on, but the mind. The second thing that we talk about in this area is the ego and your beliefs. And the ego and the beliefs are intimately equated because you operate and function out of ego purely based on your beliefs. So your beliefs about the world and your ego are things that are aligned, which means stop demonizing the ego. The ego is not something to be demonized. The ego is not something to be blamed any more than people who misuse the term karma because they've heard it used. Popular culture has used the word karma as if every time something bad happens to you, it's karma. No, karma is simply this idea of the balance of things, right? It's all things that are coming. So the lottery winner, why don't we say, man, his karma is good? I don't know. Except for there's something insidious about the human mind and how it chooses to go to the lowest vibration the most often, right? So there's something about being primarily focused on the human identity, your earthly existence, that causes you to focus on the earthly, more human aspects. Because, as I've taught many times, you come into this world, the first thing that you develop is your body, because you as a spiritual being are trying to figure out how to use this suit that you're wearing in this existence. The next thing that you develop is your mind and your intellect, because you're trying to process the information that is coming at you, whether it's the sound and the words, whether it's what is the difference between a flower and sunflower seeds and sunflower oil and all of these different things, and which one can I eat? And which one do I cook with? And which one smells so good? And why does mom smell like that? Why does dad smell like that? And why does food, like you're processing all of this information as a child, and I'm crying because I have no ability to articulate what I'm feeling. And so I'm overwhelmed because now as a baby I have all of these new sensations that I'm experiencing for the very first time, and I still don't know how to acknowledge them, calibrate them, describe them, or integrate them. So that's what the baby's doing. And then the last thing that human beings, once they have language, are taught is that you are spirit. But it's the first thing that you are. It's the one thing that you always are. If you lose your arm, if you have a leg amputated, if you have to have a kidney taken out, if you lose a part of your lung, you're still you. You're still you. Your brown hair begins to gray or completely gray. You're still you. You don't have eyesight. You're still you. None of these things that are of the body define you. But how much of the world defines us by our body? Whether it's race, right? Whether it's gender, right? Whether it's what we do with our bodies. We're athletic. We're sports people. We're in a wheelchair. We're not as physically able as other people. We've got a couple of extra pounds. We've got several dozen extra pounds. We've got curves. We have a breast amputated. We go through all of these different things with the body, and yet we define ourselves by this popular culture so much by the body. Are you your body? Oh, you don't really sound like you believe it. Oh, I got some more work to do here. Look, most of us have heard that wonderful story and seen that movie that became a movie about the young 14-year-old girl surfer who was out on the ocean near Hawaii and had her arm bitten off by a shark. They tried to convince her to use, like a prosthetic and to use that, and she just was like, no, I don't need it. And she's surfing and she's winning awards and she's having this full life. I've got an uncle for my entire life. He walked like this, but that's because he had only one leg. He had a leg that was amputated after a terrible car accident while he was in the military. Now, my uncle has never been limited by the fact that he has one leg. And those of you who know the city of Los Angeles at all, he's told me stories about him walking from let's say, Figueroa in the 20s all the way to the Century Boulevard. It's about 80 blocks. and he's not limited in any way. You think about the last time you wanted to walk 20 blocks, right? So these are all of these ways that we limit ourselves and we limit each other. We limit each other by what we think somebody can do based upon their body. We limit where a person should go based upon their body, but that's not us. So we're going back to those life structures, right? So the life structures, after we start looking at ego and we look at the mind and the thoughts and the beliefs, right? The next thing, you start looking at all of these other areas. You can look at your relationships, right? You can look at your spiritual practices. You can look at, what are some of the other things that we do? We do livelihood. That's how you make your way in the world. But we also look at your finances, because how you experience your livelihood is completely different from your finances. These are two separate and different things, and they deserve their own attention because we have experiences of life through these different channels, right? One of the other areas that we have of these 8 areas is your health, and it's mindful of your mind, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health. There's a way of kind of discerning and looking at it. And so we're asked to look at ourselves in all of these different areas. How many of you do that? Exactly. So many of my friends, we have great conversations about what we do with our times. And one of the things that I've been really transparent with my friends about lately is I was never concerned about making a lot of money. You see, when I was a student, many of you know that I'm a photographer, but when I was a student in college, I just loved taking pictures. One of the things that my dad couldn't figure out where all the money went was because I would go take pictures and then I'd go to Ritz Camera for the 2-for-1. For like 30 years, Ritz Camera, they had their 1-hour development, and you could get 2-for-1 forever. People barely get prints anymore of the pictures that they take. Dating myself. And so what happened for me was I would take pictures of everything when I was in college. I would go to the track meet. I'm a former track athlete. I would take pictures of the track athletes, and I wouldn't know them, and I would just see them on campus, and I'd be like, oh, hey, look, there's a picture I took of you, and I'd walk away. Because it really was not ever about trying to form a way of money. And then as me and my friends have had conversations since I've been out of college a little while, we've talked about the fact that I have a photographic record of anybody that we know of our years in college. Almost to the point where it's almost like a 90s throwback whenever I post a bunch of these old pictures. And that just was not a priority for me. But as I am aware of things, as I engage my spiritual practice and I recognize the world that we live in, it is essential that I'm mindful of my finances. It's essential because it's one of the ways we move through the world. Now, if I'm making more of a monkish kind of approach to life where I'm releasing any attachment to things, that's also a financial consideration, but that's a clear, concise decision, right? But I haven't decided to do that. I don't know anybody in the room that has. So being mindful and a good steward of my resources and finances and how I do things in the world is essential. So I bring all of that up, and I'm still talking about igniting the light. Now what is the thing that you find yourself giving most of your attention to, and which one of these life structures does it fall into? Is it your children? Relationship life structure. Is it your job and how you feel on your job? Livelihood. Is it politics and your world? One of the ones that I didn't say was community. Community is probably the 8th one that I didn't say. And we're all part of a community and many communities. And there's a recognition that as a human being, you're part of the human species, and there's not a person on the planet that on some level you're not connected to. It doesn't matter if they're in Vietnam, if they're in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, if they're in Peru, if they're in Norway. On some level, how we move through this world affects all of us. Now, we can see it more accurately now just through technology. Whether it's social media, whether it's the news reports on how the drilling in the different areas is impacting the water, which is impacting everything else. Whether it's this big, huge trash pond that's floating through the oceans all around the world that's then eating fish. Anybody eat fish here? Fish are eating it. It's not eating fish, but it's running into them. It's not alive yet that we know of. But it's all of these things are connected. And I'm calling on you to wake up in a way that you've never awoken before. And I'm not asking you to suddenly shun all materialism. I'm not asking you to stop making money or not prioritize money. I'm not even telling you that you need to adjust how you move in the world. But I'm telling you right now, after you leave here, you won't be able to pretend like you did not know and that Spirit did not call you to awaken to the different areas of your life. So here's the thing. How are you being called to ignite in this world? If we were to turn off all the lights in the room, don't do it, Jessica, I know you would. We would still have to figure out how do we then, in order to get into complete darkness, how do we then stop the light from the windows coming in? Anybody ever notice there's that window way up there too? We'd have to figure out how to do that. And so now think about your life. Remember I started talking about pop culture. For those of you who got the Endgame reference, it's an Avengers reference. For those of you that caught the Game of Thrones reference, which is the Battle of Winterfell, which takes place at 6 p.m. tonight. And even Brian, I don't know if he heard it when he played it earlier. Earlier than that, he was playing the interlude from Super Mario Brothers. He was playing He knows it. Remember when you played that? So if you ever remember playing that video game, the whole time when nothing's going on and you're trying to figure it out, that chord is going on. And I was like, Brian, you play a lot of strange things. I don't know if you know you're playing Super Mario Brothers. But when you're in a culture, when you're in a world where you're inundated by all of these things can be triggers if you're aware, right? So I love music, so I hear music all the time in all kinds of spaces and places. But what about you? Where are the places and spaces as you're moving through the world that you find yourself and your attention caught? What are the things that make you feel more alive? Think about it just for a moment. Each of us has a destiny. Each of us has a destiny that doesn't always look like this fancy thing to put on a pedestal. So many people judge their own lives by the fact that they're just a milkman. Not that we have milkmen anymore. Or that I just work at a factory, or that I'm just in retail, or as if the defining principle of who you are is your job. It's one of the most interesting things that I've unpacked over the years with discussions with friends is that in the dating and the social scene, how quickly a person's job and profession becomes the default to the thing I'm easiest to access about them. In other words, the first or second question that you ask a person, depending on the environment, is, what do you do for a living? And it's like the absolute worst thing for most people, because most people don't love their jobs. Most people are not in fields and careers that they love. And for those that love them, that may not necessarily be the thing that they're most interested in talking about today. But how often have you I thought about this the other day, just simply ask somebody, a brand new person, like, hey, what's your name? What makes you come alive? How different does that feel? I mean, and that's where I am with you in Spirit, and that's where Spirit is taking us today. What makes us come alive? One of the great teachers who's not coming to mind for me right now talks about if you would give me someone who is willing to come alive. What is it that makes you come alive? What is that thing when you think about it? It doesn't always have to be passion. Like, passion is a big word, and living your best life is like this phrase and this language that everybody's talking about right now, because it really does feel good to imagine that. But usually it's very glossy. Usually it has a lot of Oprah Winfrey shine on it. And I love Oprah, so it's not, that's not to minimize it, but generally it has that Michelle Obama veneer, right? It has a little bit of a Chris Rock on it sometimes. It's got a lot of comedy. It's a little Kevin Hart on it. But it doesn't look like a man or a woman who raises their family, makes sure that their kids are always felt fed, spends good time with them, has a lot of laughter in their home, has built the emotional support system so that their kids can honestly talk to them on a regular basis. Parents who have kids that want to spend time with them, kids who want to spend time with them. To me, that sounds like living your best life. It seems so easy. But this world makes it so complicated. So there's this pop culture theme that I'm trying to get you to awaken to. That there are so many different pieces for you to strip down. And I wasn't going to say it like this, but I am going to say it like this. I wish there were more strippers in the room. Jessica looked up from her phone. And here's why. I know there are somebody in here, either they're not, I don't think he's here today, he might be here today, but he does woodwork. Who is it in the, Vaughn. Yes. And Vaughn has brought some amazing pieces and set them up outside. And it always reminds me when I see his work and when I see things like that, of this idea of, you guys are all fully formed adults. And many years ago, yes you are. Go ahead and accept it. You are an adult now. Let's just start there. And in many cases, you're still living through the trauma, the unforgiveness, the anger, the resentment, the marginalization, the absence, the abandonment that you experienced somewhere along the timeline of your existence. It could be your family, it could be your best friend, it could be your BFF if that's not your best friend, it could be an ex-boyfriend, an ex-girlfriend, it could be a job. Somewhere along the way you've experienced these things, and many of those things are the way that you operate in the world today. And when I say I wish there were more strippers in the room, it's because I wish that we spent more time just releasing all of those layers. All of the layers that we put between each other, right? I don't care political affiliation. What I care is if we have a conversation about politics and we get down to a discussion, do you care about people? That's it. If you're honestly going to tell me that the political idea that you have is the best thing for people, then we can have a discussion. Other than that, we're not even talking about the most important resource in any society, is the people. The destruction of human beings, unfortunately, has been the bedrock of too many nations, so much so that eventually those nations degrade because of the poison that then comes up from that which has been destroyed. And that's happened in societies all over the world. It happens in homes, where parents are unable to figure out how to get children to do whatever it is they think that the child should be doing, except for the child is its own being. And I know you want to keep your children safe, but here's the thing. If the child is meant to go through a journey, there's absolutely nothing you can do as an aunt, an uncle, a mother, or father to prevent it. The best thing that you can do is to figure out how we, as mother and son, as me, as father and daughter, can figure out how to do this journey together. This is what you light up. This is what you ignite. It's so possible. It's a lot easier than I make it sound. It really is. Joel Goldsmith has a wonderful book. It's called A Parenthesis in Eternity. How many of you have heard that phrase? We are in a moment right now in eternity. We call it Sunday service. Before you were born, they had not attached anything to you. They had ideas. But the first thing that they attached to you was your birth date. Right? When your journey is over, at the end of it, they will attach the date of your transition from which your body ceased to function. Your death. There's a parenthesis. There's a beginning and an end. A parenthesis in eternity. That's what we've got. Except for we really have eternity. We really do. We really do have eternity. And so when we think about the people who are no longer here in the physical, we can stop right now lamenting the idea that they've died, no matter how traumatic. This is very deep work, it's very heavy lifting, But we can do it because you have the capacity. You see, the two things that I knew that I wanted to make sure that were brought forth today were capacity and this other word that's going to come. Understand this. You are missing nothing. You've heard this many times. There's nothing that needs to be added to you. Your ability to do all of these things, the distance between where you are now and where you will be, is all about moving from simply having the capacity to then building and developing your capability. It's you and what you do within the parenthesis of eternity that decides whether or not you will have more peace, more joy, more love, more harmony, more balance, more grace, more of life as you. It's not even what they write on your tombstone. It's not even what they wrote on your birth certificate. Because some people have 2 names missing from their birth certificate. There's supposed to be at least 3 names on a birth certificate, maybe 4, if we assume that the doctor was going to sign to say that he was there for you when you were born. But some people don't even have a mother and a father on their birth certificate. So even from the beginning, according to the standard documentation for a human being, they're saying you're missing something. But you're not. You are the seed that was promised. You are the living presence that's been called into existence for such a time as this. You were not born in Westeros and all these fantasy worlds. You were not born to simply be a comic strip. No, you are here to illuminate, to light up the world, to help people see what is possible. But it has to begin with you. If I do not see that it is possible, how can I expect anyone to see that it is possible through me? And I love and lament at the same time the journey that artists have to go through in this world. Because so often people who are creatives, so anywhere along that spectrum, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a painter, whether you're a singer like Bashira, or an actress like Bashira, or a performer like Bashira, she seems to collect all these categories. She's very representative of that, right? Or any of our wonderful artists and musicians, even David back there on the drums, I got him, I think I woke him up. That's my brother. All of us have to develop our capacity. So my invitation to you from this point in your journey, from this moment in eternity, is what is the capacity that you are building? Are you building more capacity for love? Unfortunately, I have to break something to you. In order to build the capacity within you to love, you're going to have to love. You're going to have to love. And I know that for many of us, loving right now may be one of the most challenging things. And the other part of that is, you know, it's like lifting weights at the gym. If you don't put any weight on there, you don't build any additional capacity. So while there have been many times where I haven't pushed the pin in and I'm like, oh, I'm so strong! It's because I wasn't doing any heavy lifting. When the reality is, I have to love something that's hard to love. So many people wrestle with whatever their political views, and I'm just going to lock in on this one particular view because people have a view of the president. They have the view of the president in which they will not say his name. They have a view of the president where they kind of marginalize their approach to him. I have no time for that. I have absolutely no time. I don't have to agree with anybody. But I have no time to waste and shuffle and be creative to just try to not say somebody's name. This is not Harry Potter. You know, I mean, it's just, I'm not caught up in all of this. You don't even see how insidious the nature is that it will grab you. Or you don't want to say Nancy Pelosi's name, whatever your view is. I don't have time. I want to be the greatest loving being I have the capacity to be. And the only way to do that is by loving things that I may not align or agree with. Whoever it is. It doesn't matter. All of those things, when it's all said and done, are not the things that light up the world, that help us to see the truth, that help to guide us on the path, that will help our children have a better world. And it's the first time when they're not sure if the world is actually going to be better for the children than it was for the parents. It's just that way right now because of what we've done to the environment, because of how we've treated the school system, because because of how we've treated people's opportunities and access. So again, today is the day that you know that you have been called forward to activate your light, to place your awareness and your consciousness on the things that you're interested in, that you're curious about what's going on in the oceans. Well, what is really being said? What is going on in the Bible? What is going on in the Torah? What is going on in the Quran? What is going on in all of these teachings that people have all of these things to say about? The Science of Mind book or the magazine. Whatever it is, you are being called to place your attention on it. And Michael Bernard Beckwith and Akili Beckwith and Reverend Keith and all of these people cannot do it for you. The only way that Soul Center reaches its fullest potential is that the individuals that are a part of this community expand their capacity. And they build the capability within themselves to bring more joy, more love, more beauty, more light, and more peace into the world. You can do this. I'm just curious if you're willing. Are you willing?
Yes.
Are you able?
Yes.
Can you build the capacity?
Yes.
Do you have the capability within you?
Yes.
Yes. That's the space, right? And that's the space I invite us to all hold right now, is that space within us as we take a moment for prayer, to enter into that space within us where we don't know. There's so much. There's so much that this world is. There's so much that is happening on this journey. I'm so grateful for all of it. I'd rather be here than anywhere else in the world. I'd rather be on this journey than any other journey. I don't want insert celebrity name here, insert politician's name here, insult businessman, businesswoman's name here. I don't want their journey. I call us to our journey. How we are called to bring more peace, how we are called to bring more love, how we are called to build the capacity within us. That becomes the capability that we walk in as the spiritual beings that we are. Beyond our body, beyond our mind, beyond our bank accounts, beyond job titles. But the awakened, ignited, illumined presence of the living one. The one that always was and that always is. That's my neighbor. Those are the ones that are driving on the highways with me. Those are the ones that are caring for our loved ones in hospitals and in convalescent homes. This is the truth of who and what we are. And so I bless this awakening, I bless this igniting, and we light up our little lives. And such that a great big light is the reality of who and what we are. This is what I know, and this is what we give each other freedom to express. I know that it is so, as our lives, as the light of Francis Beckwith, as the light of anyone that is on our heart or mind that we're holding in prayer. It is the illumined, radiant life. If there is someone that is on your heart or mind right now, speak their name aloud. Aunt Carolyn. And now speak your own name, Jason. And so that we know that there is no separation, we anchor this awareness for all of humanity and simply call it done. We release this word together, we simply declare, and so it is. Amen. Amen. Ashe. Thank you so much. So prepare yourself right now, dig deep into the pockets, or if you've got it right on top, pull from the top. If you wrote a check, if you're bringing your coins out, I hope it's like a coin that we want them to have assessed its value. Fancy coins. But the reality is that Soul Center Center is a wonderful community, and your giving supports this community. Your volunteering, your service, whether it's in this capacity as ushers, or whether it is singing, or whether it's administration or volunteering, it helps to expand and create the space so that Reverend Keith, Patricia, Jessica, and the vision that is continuing to emerge from here grows and expands. I invite you to contribute in a particular way so that you recognize that you are investing, that you are sowing a seed that you expect to grow, so that more lives are touched, more love is brought into the world, and this is one way we give of our resources, our time, our gifts, and our talents, right?
Yes.
Ushers, go forth. Bashir, come sing something.